Well, today is day 32 in our journey through the Word, and we have just finished Job and a great reading. I love the reading from Monday as there's just promises from God, and I just want to focus on that just a minute as before we jump into our reading today. The final word I want to leave you with as we leave Job and our interaction between Job and God is the promise that God restores. We see that in the end that God restored Job. And just a word of hope to those of you out there who may be hurting and just in difficult situations. When you feel like there's no hope, God can and will restore. He didn't just do it for Job. He makes that same promise for you and for me. We move from one encounter with God to another. Today's is an encounter between Moses and God. Even having read this passage before, I still had a perception on the events based on the movie, The Ten Commandments. Imagine Hollywood embellished just a little. Let's look at some of the new things God showed me in today's reading, and I hope if He maybe showed these to you as well. There may have been something new and different than He showed you, and that's exciting. I wish you'd record that in the comments and share those with the rest of us. But the new things that I had today is the account of Exodus thought to have begun about 300 years after Joseph's death. I really hadn't wrapped my mind around how long that really is, but yeah, 300 years, a long time. The people, as we read, have multiplied and multiplied, and when they had faced more adversity in order to cause them to decrease in size was the hope of Pharaoh, they still multiplied and flourished. Moses was 40 years old when he visited his people, and that is recorded in today's reading. And it made me wonder, was this the first time that he had been out among his people? I've not found an answer as I've looked, but just a word of thought on that. But what we do know is that Moses knew that he was a Hebrew, just like the people under affliction. Moses killed an Egyptian for beating a Hebrew. We read that in today's. What I wondered though was, Moses had looked around before he struck the Egyptian down and thought he had done this in secret. What he had believed was in secret quickly spread through the land. I'm sure it was on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube before he had even buried the body. And because of that, the news quickly spread to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh tries to kill Moses. So Moses flees to Midian, where we know that he marries there and has a family. And as we pick up here in a little bit, he is tending the flocks of his father-in-law. But the thing I want to go back to and just speak on here just a second that I didn't know before reading today was Pharaoh dies years later. Now he dies before Moses comes back. I had always thought that this was the same Pharaoh that Moses faced when he came back and said, "Let my people go." But this was a new king. So neither probably knew much about the other, if anything, about the other. The other thing that I just wanted to note is Moses was 80 years old when God called him. And it was just a reminder to me you're never too old to receive the calling of God. Your calling may not be to lead the nation of Israel out of Egypt. It may just be to give a cup of water to a needy person. I want to focus more on God's calling to Moses. It says several times that Moses protested to God. So I looked up the meaning. What does protest mean? It said in the dictionary, protest is an expression or declaration of objection disapproval, or dissent, often in opposition to something a person is powerless to present or avoid. Again, let me say that again. To protest is an expression or declaration of objection, disapproval, or dissent, often in opposition to something a person is powerless to prevent or avoid. Moses' objections were powerless against what God had called him to do. God had looked down on his people and said, "It's time to act." And Moses was created for such a time as this. He was given the name Moses by Pharaoh's daughter because she lifted him out of the water. In Exodus 2:10 it said, the princess named him Moses, for she exclaimed, "I lifted him out of the water." Moses, to lift out. Moses was the one chosen by God to be the tool to lift his people out of Egypt. We see God's promise, God's power, and God's provision. God's promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. God's promise to Moses. We see God's power displayed in these rod and putting his hand in his cloak and changing it to that of pure white of a leopard. But we also see God's provision where God has sent Moses' brother Aaron, and after much protest, God, angry at Moses, says that Aaron can be his mouthpiece. But I want to focus as we wrap up today on my favorite verse that is found in today's reading. And this is one that God gave me years ago as I was just facing some things that I wasn't sure I wasn't sure. I knew I wasn't qualified to do. Like Moses, I asked God, "Why me? There are others more qualified. Please choose someone else." And God promised me, and he promises to you today, "Now go. I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you what to say." And that comes out of Exodus 4:12. Those are powerful words that I stand on each and every day. God makes the same promise to you. Now go. Trust God in his calling. Like Moses, I ask, "Why? Who am I?" And the answer, without God, nothing. With God, I am who he calls me to be. What has he called you to today? I challenge you, don't say no. Just go. And he will bless you and protect you more than you can imagine. I hope you have a great Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow as we journey through the Word.